What's up, guys? Evolutionary.org podcast coming your way, guys. Speeding right along. We're almost at 300. We have a Q&A episode, 5 great topics, all sent in by you guys. So first one, guys, we're going to the Stevesmi here and Rick. I forgot to introduce Rick. What's up, man?
Hey, what's up, Steve? What's up, guys? How's everybody doing out there?
All right, guys. So 5 great topics. Let's hit the first one. Very simple one, straight up. What is your favorite steroid? I'm going to bring in Rick on this one first. I think Rick's favorite is testosterone. Tell us why you like testosterone, Rick, and tell us some of the other steroids that you really, really love.
So testosterone I love for several reasons. One, because I have access to human-grade clean testosterone. I'm not throwing the dice out there with underground lab steroids that might be underdosed or contaminated with heavy metals. So I like the fact that I get human-grade testosterone. Two, all of the drugs that we use for the side effects that we get were kind of designed and meant for testosterone, not for these other steroids. So when you take your anti-estrogens, when you take, all of your DHT inhibitors, these drugs were all designed and tested, and really they're meant for testosterone use. So the drugs work great on testosterone. The side effects are predictable. I just know what it's going to do. I know it so well now that I know just off the top of my head, just by knowing how many mgs I'm going to do that week, I know just exactly the right dosage that I would need for anti-estrogens. It's predictable. All the drugs work great with it. And I don't have to worry about these long down the line, long-term side effects that could come from the synthetic stuff. We just don't really, I guess the steroids that are out there now, they've been around since the 60s. So we have a pretty good understanding of what they do. But look, just recently, Trenbolone was linked to, Parkinson's, right? Yeah, just recently, there was a nice article about Trenbolone being linked to Parkinson's. It might do that. Testosterone, it's been in our body since we were born. It was in our body since we were in the womb. Testosterone is what our bodies have ran on for millennia. So I know what the long-term side effects of testosterone are. That test has been done already. The long-term side effects of high testosterone, there's been a ton of research on it. So testosterone is just, it's what my body already makes. It's predictable. I know what it's going to do. The drugs are meant for it. Long-term side effects, we know it's naturally occurring. So really now you're just worried about the long-term side effects of having high testosterone, not the long-term side effects of smashing these synthetics into your body. So that's my whole wrap on testosterone. Now this is Rick going into 40, really worried about his heart health, his organ health, right? Going on down the line. But I also like EQ. Equipoise, I think, is a great steroid. I can get veterinarian grade equipoise, which getting a steroid from a certified veterinarian lab is good because they're forced to test the final product for potency, for contamination. They are required by law to test the raw ingredients coming in for identity, for purity. So there is definitely a testing and an overseeing body overseeing the manufacturing of these steroids. So Equipoise, second one up, veterinarian grade. It's not methylated, so it won't hurt my liver. It's got a nice long ester on it, so it doesn't spike. It doesn't give me estrogen side effects the way maybe the shorter testosterone esters would, because it's got such a long ester. It builds up pretty nicely. My body responds to it well. The worst side effect I get from Equipoise is I do get some back and shoulder acne, which I can deal with pretty easily. And so that would be my second favorite steroid, Equipoise. It's just not very low side effects, just the acne. I feel like it does something. And it doesn't, I feel like it does something really major as far as helping me gain long-term mass on a cycle. Also during PCT, because it kind of lasts so long in the body, its effects go away real slow, and I have time to use my HC generate N2 generate, we call it now, obviously, right? Use my N2 generate during my post-cycle therapy and recover. So those are really good. And look, I'll give you guys some good mentions too of really good steroids. Turinabol, great steroid. To me, it gives me all the good Dianabol without the bloating and the stuff I don't like. Primobolan, incredible steroid. It's a great steroid. If I could still get legitimate human grade Primobolan, I'd do that shit probably for a year. It's a great steroid. If you can get good, clean, human grade, legitimate Primobolan depot, and you can afford it because it is quite expensive. And because it's so expensive, is faked quite often. So trying to find legitimate, good Primobolan depot on the black market is pretty rough. I'm not going to say impossible, but it's pretty rough. Masteron, great steroid too. It's got its use. At least for me, I'm prone to gynecomastia. I'm prone to estrogen side effects. So Masteron actually worked pretty decent. I didn't use it a lot to add it into my cycles. I opted for using Aromasin and Novadex when I needed it instead of just stacking on Masteron as an anti-estrogen. But it's got its place. I would mess with it again if I could get some legit Masteron. And those are kind of like it. I mean, look, Anavar is great, but you need a pretty high dosage of it to get a lot of results from it. Not my fave. That's about it. It's a quick run through for you guys of steroids I like. And look, today I only really use testosterone and equipoise. For the look that I'm going for, that's all I need. I'm not trying to be the biggest guy, or I'm not trying to be too ripped year round. I got abs. I got striations. See some veins on my shoulders when I'm working out. I mean, I'm good. So just for what I need for the look that I'm trying to achieve, just testosterone, a little bit of AQ here and there, and just going with the rest of my life. I'm not sitting here worried about liver long term and doing damage to myself long term or daily with it. Just it's all I use now. Again, different situation for me. I'm not looking to get on stage, compete. I'm going into 40. I'm a lot more worried now about long term health, my organs, than I am about just experimenting on myself like I did for the first 4 decades of my life. So yeah, that's my thing on it. What do you think, Steve? What's your favorite?
Yeah, that was a handful for sure. That was a mouthful, Rick. For me, it's very simple. I've done all kinds of things over my life. I think for an active lifestyle, running, bicycling, swimming, doing a lot of active shit, EQ is my favorite. It doesn't fuck with me. It gives me a boost with all that stuff with endurance. Doesn't fuck with me with side effects. If I want just to be a gym rat and, also athletic stuff and have a beach body and then T-Bowl. T-Bowl is my favorite for that. Just run it 4 to 6 weeks, 20, 30 milligrams a day, does a great job. I mean, it's cut and dry, very simple. And then finally strength. When I was a strength athlete, Tren. And I know Tren is a nasty steroid. It's got a lot of side effects, causes a lot of inflammation. It fucks with your dopamine. It fucks with your prolactin. So yes, it has been linked to Parkinson's and all that stuff, but nothing will get you as strong as Tren. But I mean, it comes at a cost. I mean, with the problems. I have 3 herniated discs and a torn rotator cuff from using Tren because I was so fucking strong that I fucked my body up. So, those are my favorites, guys, for different things. If I could go back and not use Tren, I would probably not use Tren, So, but hey, if your goal is strength, you got to do it. I mean, if you want to get as strong as you can possibly get.
Yeah, this question was asked of me 15 years ago, 10 years ago. I would be discussing a lot more the aesthetic effects and how it made me look and how it made me feel and the weight I'm putting up, because that's what I cared about at 25 and just going into 30. Nowadays, I just want something that makes me feel good, makes me feel young, makes me look good, and won't fuck me up long term, because at my age, I've already had a couple of health situations that put me in bed for a few days. And it's not a great feeling to not be able to get around, to be in some pain, to be in some sort of uncertainty, waiting for test results. Oh, geez, I just don't want to deal with any of that. So now at my age today, that's, the answer changes right over time, right, Steve?
Absolutely. And then my answer is going to change. It could change a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. So it just really depends. All right, guys. So the next one, it's a pretty cut and dry one, but I think it's an important one to talk about. He wants to know, he's using tesipinate for his cycle. He's worried about a crash after, and he wants to know if there's any tips. So right off the bat, guys, 2 tips I can give you right off the bat, my friend. Pre-blood work, pre-cycle blood work, very, very important to see where your baselines are. And then have a PCT, post-cycle therapy, on hand. Low dose SERMs, Clomid, and or Nolvadex. Low dose, not the dosages you see on some forums where guys are saying run 200-300 milligrams of Clomid. It's 40-60 milligrams of Nolvadex. That's just insane. It's going to be miserable. And then run N2 Generate, extra strength ES. Together, that's a good, solid post-cycle therapy. You can add some other stuff. You can add a little all-string and a little cardarine as an option. But that's going to be your PCT. Now, the whole point of a PCT is to prevent that crash, because when you come off, those hormones leave your system, and then boom, you crash. So the PCT is not to restart your HPTA, but it's actually to prevent that crash. So a good PCT, very, very important, guys. Pre-cycle blood work, very, very important to see where you're at. And then don't let your estrogen levels get out of control on cycle, because if your estrogen levels are sky high coming off cycle, that's going to make it harder to recover too. So those 2-3 things will prevent a crash, guys. But I'll tell you, when you go on steroids and you feel a huge effect from them, you're going to lose that effect when you come off. So you have to be aware of that. So you're not going to ever feel as good as you do on steroids. It's a huge boomerang effect. That's what I've noticed over the years, especially your first cycle or two. You get all those androgens going. You feel fantastic. You feel like you're 17 again, and it's going to suck when you come off. So that's why a lot of guys, they just stay on steroids year round. So you want to be aware of that, guys. Definitely good PCT will help. Really quick, Rick, any other tips you can give this guy?
Well, any steroid can make you crash. Any steroid can do that. You could do Anavar and crash on it. So, yeah, man, just post-cycle therapy products. I take HC Generate almost year round now. The herbals do help. I mean, I feel great on them. And that is the main effect that I'm looking for from steroids nowadays, is really just that great feeling I get, that great kind of pumped up, take over the world feeling it gives you. It just feels great. And I notice when my testosterone is low, just by the way I feel, just 2-3 days, I know I'm not feeling great. I'll go get tested, and now, boom, my testosterone won't be where it needs to be. So definitely the feeling of it is it's a great part.
All right, so next one is an interesting one. He's saying he notices pins and needles that come and go on cycle. So when I first read this, a couple things popped into my head. But the first one is actually, I'm suspecting you may have some nerve issues going on. And we see this a lot. It's not directly caused by the steroids you're using, but the steroids you're using are causing you to push a little harder in the gym. They're causing a little more inflammation. They're causing more muscle growth, putting a lot of pressure on those nerves. So you may notice some nerve issues. I can tell you with me, because I do have herniated disc, and I think that most of you listening do have herniated disc, including you, Rick. And that's just because of years of weight training is going to cause herniated disc. It's going to cause those issues. So those herniated discs tend to pinch on the nerves. So one of the things I started noticing when I was in my 20s, I started lifting weight when I was 15 years old. Then in my 20s, mid-20s, late 20s, I started noticing like pins and needles like going down my arms, my legs, my arms. And I talked to some, medical professionals about this, and they didn't really have an explanation for why that was happening. But then once I got into my 30s, I started noticing more and more issues. I started noticing a lot more spasms, neck spasms, back spasms. So finally, I saw a really, really good ortho. He had an MRI done, and he's like, you got herniated disc. And so that was actually what was happening. Just years of pounding and weight training will cause those herniated discs and cause those nerve issues. So really, you have to be aware of that, guys. It's very important to maintenance on the body. Just like if you own a car, you want your car to last a long time, you have to, get the oil change. You got to change the tires. You got to do all those things. All that regular maintenance will help you keep your car running smooth long term. So one of the things that I started doing religiously is yoga, specifically hot yoga, specifically Bikram yoga, and that has helped me with my herniated disc. Just from the first class, right off the bat, I felt better. So I bet you in your situation, you have some type of nerve issue going on, and the steroids are making it worse, and pushing yourself hard in the gym is making it worse. That would be my logical thing to think about and to investigate. Rick, do you have a different opinion on this?
Most people that I come across that report some kind of health issue, the majority of them, it circles back to three main things, to three main themes that kind of have a lot of us fucked up. And one of them is your spine health, your back health. I'll just mention the three so we know what we're talking about here. Back health, gut health, and brain health. Okay? Because stress will cause pins and needles in your arms and the back of your neck, everywhere. Stress can manifest itself as physical pain. Even if you, at the moment, they're not faced with the source of your stress, later on in the day while you're doing something else, you can have physical effect from stress that you experienced earlier in the day. Your back, most people's backs are fucked up. They don't sleep properly. They don't have the right posture. They don't have the right posture when they're training, when they're driving, nothing, which causes our nerves to pinch, and all these nerves are branching out into vital organs and into things that parts of your body that need that direct connection. And gut health. So those are the main three things that I think anybody out there that's suffering any kind of pain here, pain there, whatever the fuck, those three things, remove that off the table. Make sure that your back health is where it needs to be, that you're doing yoga at least twice a week. Most gyms have free yoga classes. Just go into the beginner's yoga twice a week. Make sure to do meditation. Even if you only do it once or twice a week, ideally you could do 5 minutes a day. Ideally, you can do 5 minutes a day. And it'll just help so that when situations arise, they won't physically pound you and stress you out. They won't take over you. You'll have issues. We all have problems. We all have difficulties. But you'll be able to kind of sit next to your difficulties and dialogue with them and deal with them without being taken over by them, without it. That physical stress is once you've let a feeling take over your body, which is not a good thing. And gut health, probiotics, digestive enzymes, and digestive fiber every day, at least 3 times a day. And if you take care of those 3 things to start off with, if those 3 things are on point, brain health, spine health, and digestion, then you could start looking at whatever else could be going on. But it's a common theme. And if you think about it, right, those are the 3 stressors of modern life. Those are the 3 problems that we didn't have when we were running naked in the savannah. We didn't have all this food that's messing up our gut health. We didn't have this lack of proper exercise, because you can go to the gym and train for an hour or 2, but train in the wrong way and cause more damage than if you were just running in the savannah throwing a fucking spear. Throw a rock one day, a nice throw, and you hear your back crack. It's just letting loose. And same thing with stressors, with life stressors. We weren't caught up in traffic. It was pretty straightforward. You were either chasing something to eat, or you were trying not to get eaten. Things are pretty straightforward. So if you look at it, it's just modern life stressors beating up our human bodies, our human minds, our human skeletons, and it's what we got to deal with.
Okay, so next one, we have a nutrition one. He wants to know what we think about smoothies and juicing. So let me just explain this, guys. When you take a fruit and you juice the fruit, what are you doing? You're putting it through a processing phase. So you're extracting that juice right out of it. So you're leaving the fiber, you're leaving the pulp, you're leaving those antioxidants, you're leaving the skin, okay? All those cancer fighting, antioxidants that are in the skin of a fruit is gone. It's extracted, and it's a much higher sugar content in the juice. So yes, I love fresh orange juice. I'll have it here and there. But at the end of the day, I also know that eating an actual organic, locally grown orange is going to be way more healthy for me than juicing, or going to the store and buying orange juice off the shelf that's been pasteurized. Pasteurizing juice kills everything, kills all the good shit, So, we see them, the propaganda, they want to push you to buy orange juice, but do you really think that orange juice that was juiced 2,000 miles away, then shipped, pasteurized, and then sitting on a shelf at the supermarket all this time is going to have the same nutrition as an actual orange that's been locally grown and organic? Of course not. So I'm not saying it's bad, but I'm just saying, like, these people who are obsessed with juicing all the time, and we see these infomercials, they're trying to sell you the next juicer or the next blender or the next whatever, guys, they're not being honest with you. They're not telling you the truth. Your fresh fruits and vegetables, organic, locally grown, sitting right in front of you, eating them whole, is going to be way more nutrition than juicing or putting them, into a smoothie or whatever. So I just it's very, very important to understand that when you mess with food, you put food through a processing stage, you reduce the amount of nutrition in that food. But it doesn't mean I don't like to have a smoothie every once in a while. I don't like to blend, have blended fruits and vegetables, or I don't like to have, juice every now and then either. But I'm just saying, try to stick to mostly the fresh, organic, locally grown fruits and vegetables, and that's your best bet. And that's what do you think, Rick?
I agree. And look, everything has got its place, but I do agree that when you consume fruit, you want to try to keep all the fiber in it. If you look, juicing, the times that I've liked to juice is, for example, I was doing a cleanse for my gallbladder. So part of what I was doing is I was trying to have about 20 to 30 apples a day that were juiced. So it just made it a lot easier for me to run them through the juicer and consume all these apples that way. But that's a very unique situation. On a day-to-day basis, you don't want to really remove the fiber from your fruit. You don't want to do that. That's for what? I mean, at that point, it's just a sweet juice. You don't have anything else. So if you're gonna do a smoothie, just throw the whole fruit in there. Throw the whole apple in there with the peel. Obviously, you don't throw the core in, right? But just keep as much of that fiber of the peel on the fruits that you can keep the peel. Just keep it all in there. Again, juicing is a very unique situation. If you're doing a cleanse, if you're trying to add a certain amount of something to your diet, I can maybe see a place for it that way. But in regular practice, smoothies are great as long as you're throwing the fruit in whole and you're letting your blender chop it up for you, and then you're drinking it whole. I think you take most of the benefits out of the fruit when you remove the fiber from it and just leave the sugars. It's not the way to eat fruit.
All right, guys. So the last one is a fun one. He sent it in, and he's saying that he's from New York and he flew out to Los Angeles to meet up with his wife and her family, and he got served divorce papers out of the blue. And he didn't do anything. He flew back to New York, and now her lawyer called him up and said that he has to do something by next week, or they can basically take everything. So he wants to know advice about this. So I want to bring in Rick on this. But first off, let me just say, dude, listen, first of all, if she hired a lawyer, you're going to have to fight fire with fire, bro. You're going to have to hire your own lawyer. And a good lawyer, $500, $1,000 an hour. It's they're going to want to get $20,000, $25,000 retainer to start. They're going to want to get forensic accounting on all your assets, her assets. That's probably going to cost you another 10, 15 grand right there. And you're probably going to end up having to pay a chunk of her lawyer fees as well. So, and it sucks because, you know, you have a son. He said he has a son and he's fighting for custody. And now you're going to have to fight for your son. And in the process, you're going to have to drain your son's college fund. So, you know, here's the thing, like, as soon as you let her take your son to Los Angeles, you made life very difficult for yourself, because you were saying that you got married in LA to be close to her family. Your kid was born in LA because she wanted to be close to her family. And then she served your ass in LA. So how are you going to convince a court that it's okay to take to get custody of the kid in New York when all this happened in LA? So what I would recommend is grabbing the kid and taking him back to New York, and then have your lawyer file action over there. This way you can make your family a New York family. Otherwise, you're probably never going to see your kid again outside of Los Angeles. So I don't know, Rick, what do you think? It's pretty shitty, though, the way these lawyers fuck people over.
Well, one mistake some men make is they try to save some money by not hiring the best lawyer to represent them, but their wife is going to hire the best lawyer to represent her. And in most cases, you're going to pay for her lawyer too. So you're going to pay for her lawyer and pay for your lawyer to fight over your money. Most cases, unless she's well-to-do and unless she has some of her own money. And then if she has some of her own money, there might not be lawyers involved because she's, you know, you could usually work it out nicely if she's got some money. It's when you have all the money that it gets like this. It's a rough situation, man. It's tough. I've been married. I decided that I'll never get married again. I'm not going to bring the federal government into my relationship ever again, or ask them for permission to be with or leave somebody or anything. Once you involve the federal process, the state level, federal, once you involve the government in your relationship, the rules change. So he's pretty well screwed. He's kind of screwed. What is he going to do? And look, if the divorce was coming from him, if he's the one who wanted to separate, and then this problem got out of his hands and his wife's lawyered up and all that, he could try to work it out a little bit, kind of like I did, my situation a little bit, just finagle it. But she just served them. So chances are she's probably cheating on you, bro. Because how did she just serve him out of the blue, right? So he doesn't have any control over the situation. You know, I'll confess a little something, maybe can help someone out there. The first time that my ex-wife and I actually sat down to talk about divorce, lawyers were involved, and the talk got really negative, really dark, really nasty real quickly, because lawyers push that and they'll influence your ex-wife to be vindictive and nasty towards you. I mean, they make money for, convincing her that she needs to get after you. So when I saw the situation getting out of hand, I said, you know what? We're going to work it out. We're going to work this out. So we kind of sort of did, but just a couple of years later, we were back, now this time in front of a mediator, okay, who's like a therapist that helps you. You go there to therapy and you discuss with her every single point of getting divorced. And this guy will help you guys put together a piece of paperwork, which should be an agreement of how things should be when you guys divorce. And you do this in front of a therapist that's helping you guys think about your kids and your future, and not some fucking scumbag lawyers that are just trying to bill you hours. And the mediator, the counselor, will put this big thick paper together, and they'll usually give you the card or the phone number for a lawyer that can then put this agreement into something you guys can both sign and divorce. But in my opinion, if she cares about you and your kids, she ever did, and you care about her and your kids, you're not going to sit there and give the lawyers a bunch of your money. You sit together with a counselor that specializes in helping couples get divorced, and you can get this thing wrapped up with one lawyer and without ever stepping in a courtroom. And that's the way to fucking get divorced if you're going to do it. Because once you involve lawyers, man, it's out of your hands, bro. And look, and you might have to stop being a baby, be a grown up. You're already in this situation. You might need to go back in that house. You might need to try to work this thing out for a little bit, convince her, of the right things to do if you guys are really sick of each other, and go sit in front of a counselor. Be one counselor in the two of you, and then be one lawyer in the two of you. And here's the other thing. When you bring the paperwork to the lawyer, he's going to say, look, I can't represent both of you. I must represent one of you. Who am I representing? You just tell her, him, they're representing you, not her. Okay, it's fine. And just make sure that you have that one piece of paper. And that's the way to do it. My opinion is the only way to get divorced. It's you go to a counselor, you have them do the paperwork, you use one lawyer, and you're fucking done.
But Rick, if she's serving him,
oh, it's out of his hands. No, that's only going to help. No,
I think they're past that. I think at this point,
he's done. He's
going to have to get a lawyer. He can't just not get a lawyer. If he doesn't get a lawyer, she takes everything.
The fact, look, oh no, he's got to get a lawyer. No, the fact that that he was surprised by being served with divorce papers, he's done. She didn't even, she's supposed to talk to him about these things. A lot needs to go on before you get divorce papers. You can't just be blindsided by divorce papers. If you are, bro, she's cheating on you. It's done. I mean, it's over. He's done. Maybe this can help some guys out there that are kind of like in a rough situation and blah blah blah.
So a good lawyer is probably going to cost about $1,000 an hour.
Don't try to save money on your lawyer, bro. Do not, you don't want to be because you're paying for her lawyer. I take it. So you don't want, she's going to walk in there with a legal team and huge stacks and crates of folders, and your guy's going to walk in with a little file in his hand. You need to get yourself a good lawyer too, and it's going to be expensive, and the whole thing's going to fucking suck, but you're going to have to do it.
You have to fight dirty. I think one of the issues...
I wouldn't call it fight dirty because they'll get you too. You just have to make sure that you have a good lawyer as well, and if at all, man, if she's reasonable at all, just try to work this out with a counselor. Just say, look, I don't want to take any money off the plate for my kids, for you, even for us to pay these motherfuckers. Just to look, let's sit with a counselor. We'll talk about all the money that's there. What's fair, how much we can, and we won't spend more on lawyers than we have to. To put the paperwork together and for the one lawyer to divorce you guys after you went to a counselor, look, if you divorce the way I'm telling you, it might cost you, I don't know, $3,000 to $5,000, $7,000 maybe, if that, and you're done. That's if you got something. But if you sit there and you try to go back and forth with lawyers, oh, dude, it'll take years. It'll suck. It'll just be terrible. Look, she can tell you you're an asshole and how much she hates you in front of the counselor too. She doesn't need to have a lawyer tell your lawyer that, that fuck you. We don't need all of that. You can sit next to me on a couch in front of a counselor and say, fuck you. And you don't need to have your lawyer tell my lawyer, fuck you. And because at the end of the day, that's kind of sort of what it comes down to, because I think most men are reasonable and are willing to make sure that their kids and even her are fine and okay and dandy after your divorce. I mean, shit, I was. But the fucking lawyer, that's not his job. His job is not to make it an easy 1, 2, 3 separation. That's not his fault. His job is to bill hours and to get paid on, like, you know, that's their fucking job, is to turn her against you. So we can make this drag out, you know? So you need to reach out to her, try to find that connection you had with her at the start. You have to be a real fucking man about this. Don't be a baby. And just how you know how to, you know, finagle people in business and at work and all these things. You're gonna have to just finagle this too so that your kids and her can be fine. Your kid and her can be fine.
Okay, but Rick, really quick, he's in New York, she's in LA.
He's done. No, he's done. Again,
you're saying
he's fucking done, bro. Listen,
he's not getting this custody of the kid in New York at this point.
Listen. If the kid's already going to school, he's done. Wherever the kid's going to school, listen.
Yeah. The court doesn't want to move.
You're not going to get a judge that's going to be okay with pulling a kid. If the kid's already going to school in California and that's where she's at, he's done. If the kid if they were on a trip to NY, even if it was short term and the kid was in school in NY and then she wanted to leave, he could say, no, we're not leaving. We're not taking the kid out of school. And a judge won't let her take the baby out of school at NY if he's already going to school. Like, it could get serious like that. But he's already going to school. It's done. He's fucking done. Listen, the fact that she served them and didn't talk to you, it tells you just how far you guys have grown apart. It just goes to show you how far you guys have grown apart. So if you can, this guy, if you can, try to figure out what happened, try to work it out. Even if you know you need to get divorced from her now after she served you like this out of the blue, just try to work it out. Just hit it for a little while longer. And then, you know, go divorce in front of a mediator, of a counselor that's going to sit there. And every time you guys are trying to make a decision about money, about assets, about payments, the counselor is going to remind you guys that we're all here for what's best for the baby and what's going to help her. And the counselor will tell her, like, bitch, you need to get going with your life and go make a living. So how can this man help you get along to doing that? Like, you know, he'll Dr. Phil her ass a little bit, you know, and tell you too. Like, hey man, you know, you told her this would be forever. Now it's not going to be. You need to, you need to help her get situated. You know, you've been the breadwinner. So, you know, but it's a much better. And again, bro, she can tell you how much she fucking hates you in front of the counselor too. And you sit there and you take her. Listen, you rather her take all her anger and frustration out on you. Just let her do it. Let her say whatever. Don't answer back. You rather that go on than her lawyer tell your lawyer in really weird sounding letters that she's just saying, fuck you. You know what I mean?
So I had a buddy of mine. He's been married 4 times. And,
yeah, I ain't that fucking stupid. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to shit on your buddy, but after the first time I did it, I told you, man, I got my divorce papers in the mail. My mom was there, and I showed her, and she gave me a big hug. She was like, congratulations. And then she just said, don't do it again.
But this guy, he hasn't been divorced 4 times, right? He's been divorced 3 times. And the fourth time will stick, God willing.
Why even get married now? Why even get married nowadays? Really? Why bring the government into your?
Because it's a wonderful thing.
You can make a you can make a decision with someone that we're going to be together forever and we're going to be exclusive, without bringing the government into you.
What about a prenup? If you get a prenup, does that work?
Well, that's necessary. That's necessary.
That would cover you in this situation, or no?
Here's the problem with the prenup, though. A decent prenup that's going to hold up in court. Last time I checked, which is decades ago, it was about $3 to $4 grand, $5 grand.
Oh shit.
A decent
per person.
I think it's just per the prenup, but this is years ago. It was like $3 grand, a decent prenup. But a lot of people get married out of love when they don't have shit, and then one person might just outwork the other one. White person, you know, one could be the female too or the male, and then by the time you really can afford and do need the prenup, it's too late. So it's
What do you mean it's too late?
Meaning you got to have the prenup before you get married.
Yeah, so if you have it before, you got to get it before.
But what? Okay, but what if when you get married, you're still in college or you're your first shitty job,
you can't afford it,
and you can't you can't even afford to pay $3,000 to get it.
Yeah, I'd say don't get married then.
Just don't. I don't even know why anybody gets married anymore. Like, you can decide to be with someone and do something symbolic and say it's just you and me, baby, and you don't need to bring the government into your situation. It's like gay people have been fighting to get married. Listen, if they want to give half of their shit away too, and give their lawyers their money, by all means. I think they've had it too good for too long. They've had it too good for too long. They could just walk out on someone like, screw you, and we're done, and they don't have to give them half of their shit. By all means, if that's what they want to do. Like, what the fuck is the point of bringing the gun? Why is it not good enough to just make a pact between you and I? Like, saying two people that we're just going to be together.
I'm with you on that, but a lot of women, that's not going to fly with them because they want that security. They want to be like, this is my.
If you're somewhat well-to-do, if you got some money, I guess. I know that's not true because a lot of women marry broke guys too. I don't know, but I just think nowadays with things being as complex as they are, I just think you shouldn't have another step that you have to go through and all these things anymore, my opinion.
So my final advice to this guy, because the kid's involved here, you have two options too. Because I talked to my buddy of mine about this. If her family has money, you can actually, bring her mom involved or her dad involved into it and be like, I don't want her mom or her dad seeing the kid. And you can kind of get them to pay some of the bill in that situation. The thing is too, PI, private investigator, follow your wife, try to catch her, drinking, doing drugs, stuff like that. This way her lawyer can't portray her in front of a judge as the perfect mother, because, women have to be perfect, like the Virgin Mary and all this shit, they got to be perfect, but the man, it's okay for the man to fuck around and stuff, and the court isn't going to come down on the guy like that. So you gotta get her away from being the perfect mother, because the court expects her to be the perfect mother. If you're going to get at least half and half with this guy. Now, your other issue is if you got an apartment in New York, okay, and you're flying back and forth to see your kid because he's in school in LA, you're setting a precedent, and the judge might look at it that way. Of you're not serious about seeing your son because you're in New York, not in LA. But on the flip side, if you get a place in LA, you're also going to set a precedent that LA is your home. You're not a New York family. So, it's kind of like, they're fucked either way. So really at this point, you've got to actually fight for 50-50 custody in LA, because I don't think there's no way the court's going to, allow you to take the kid. But like, if it's not too late, right away, take the fucking kid to New York and put him in school in New York. And let her have to be the offense, and let her have to prove that you're not a New York family. Because you got an apartment in New York that you're paying for. Your residence is New York. She's just visiting her mom in LA. It's two different things. So that's your only hope in this situation. But again, a good lawyer is gonna tell you to do this shit, and you've got to be able to trust your lawyer. And it's gonna be $1,000 an hour, dude, for a good lawyer. If you hire a cheap lawyer, $200, $300, $400, $500 an hour, there's a reason they're cheap. Because they're shitty lawyers. So, you gotta be smart about this. You're fighting for your kid at this point. That's the kid. All this is for your kid.
And look, man, if you can, just bring that ass back. Bring that ass back home. Try to work that shit out. Even if it's just for a few months, so you can get her in front of a counselor and you can go through and just try to have an amicable separation. Do that, finagle that shit, just work that shit out somehow. Because listen, I'll give you a little example, Steve. So when I went to the counselor with my my ex-wife, we talked about the kids and visitations we during in front of the counselor. And it was just one visit, one afternoon where we agreed that she was going to let me take the babies out of the country if I wanted to, or any trip I wanted to, for about 20 to 21 days per year, as long as it's synced with her vacations. And that's it. And we agreed on it one afternoon. At first, she had some reservations and she wanted to okay the trips and this and this and that. And the counselor stepped in and said, look, no, like, you know, he's the dad. He's paying your ass. Let him take it. Let him take the kids. So she agreed. And that was part of the paperwork that we filed with the state later on, what my visitation rights were. And it wasn't, we didn't go there to fight in front of the judge with lawyers or nothing. We went in front of the judge. We brought the fucking paperwork in, and now I get to travel with my kids wherever I want for 21 days out of the year. Just take them from their mom during their vacation, and they hang out with me, and it's agreed to by court, and that along with my other visitation rights. Now, let me finish. Okay. Had we had two fucking lawyers trying to figure this out, we could have spent 6 months going back and forth, just me trying to get those 21 days of being able to travel with my kids out of state, out of the country, whatever. It would have been a process, because she might have been okay with it, and then the lawyer would have gave her reasons why maybe that wasn't the best idea, you know, and then it would have just been a thing, and maybe it would have been left up to the judge, and then you understand what I'm saying, where I'm coming from?
Yeah, but I'm saying in his situation, it doesn't sound like she wants to work shit out. Sounds like
he might need to try. We don't know what the fuck he's been doing at that house before she served him with papers. Maybe the dude's just out of touch. Maybe.
What's her incentive for sitting down and working with a counselor versus just having him pay for her lawyer and her getting the maximum, you know, and fucking him over and backstabbing him? What's her incentive? She hates
because she's not getting the maximum, because his and her lawyer are going to take a chunk of it. He should start off there. Like he should start off like, listen, man, these lawyers are going to fuck us up. If they're going to fuck us up to work something out, then you and I could have just worked out. Look, let's go in front of a counselor. You can go in there every visit, go in there and tell me what a big fucking asshole I am and how bad I was to you. But I'll sit there and take it. Fine. And you know, that's her incentive, because the lawyer's gonna get, and he's got to tell her, like, look, nobody has an infinite amount of cash. Nobody has an infinite amount of money. Once these lawyers are through with them, they're gonna take tens of thousands of dollars from them that he could have just gave to her. Like that's kind of my situation that I ended up doing. I'm like, listen, these lawyers are gonna fuck us up. We already know that. How about instead of you know, me putting down 10 G's on your lawyer to get started and 10 G's on mine, how about I just cut you a check for 15 just to get started, and we get these counseling fucking things going. You can start living on that while we get this counseling and the shit worked out. You take the money.
Yep, you gotta do that.
Yeah, like you got to try to touch base with her to like that girl that you met, that you were crazy about, that first date, the second. Like you got to try to reconnect with that person somehow. Like, listen, when I met you at the game, you know, at the stadium, I had no idea you and me were going to be in front of a lawyer one day, baby. But now that we're here, you know, you got to try to reconnect with that beautiful, reasonable person that you thought was, when you remember when you thought there was no other woman like her on earth. Remember that? When you thought she was just so special, there was just nobody like her. You got to try to find a way to reconnect with that person, try to be reasonable, and let her take out her fucking frustrations on you as much as you can possibly let her. Admit to your faults, look sorry. Look, anything's better than the fucking lawyers getting at you guys. Anything.
So how much do you think this lawyer would end up charging?
It depends how much you have, bro. It'll just be a ton of money, bro. It'll just be disgusting. And you got to pay for her lawyer and pay for your lawyer to fight over your money. Bro, when I found myself in that situation, man, I'll be real. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to tell her we're working this out. I'm going to take her home. I'm going to hit this for a few more months. You know, we'll keep hitting it for a few more months. And then, you know, we're going to find a better way. Because I'm not giving these motherfuckers all my money.
Rick, a lot of people.
The retainers on the lawyer alone. Just the fucking retainers, bro. Jeez.
$25,000. But a lot of people listening aren't aware of this. They don't know how.
Now they are.
Yeah, I mean, were you aware?
That's what that's why you listen to this podcast. Now you are. Now they are.
But did you know this when you got married? That divorce lawyers will take all your money.
Well, like many people, bro. When I got married, when we got married, we were both kids. I didn't have anything. She didn't have anything.
So you weren't even thinking about it.
Weren't even thinking about it. And then, like, when we got married, I mean, I didn't have shit. I don't come. My parents were. We've always been very humble. We emigrated here, so we don't have shit. So, matter of fact, when we got married, you could have said she was better off than I was. So it wasn't a situation. But then you fast forward, 10 years later, and things aren't going well. And by that point, I've contributed something to society. I've created value in the marketplace.
We're sending a copy to this podcast to her.
Now people now know, if you're out there, if you're listening, that's what it is, man. Hopefully this will help. I mean, I'm speaking from experience here, bro. You don't do that. You don't see, another thing too is a lot of guys rush it because maybe they have a little side piece, maybe a girl they need to go answer to, because eventually she'll ask you to leave your wife too, maybe. So they're rushing it. So they rather pay a lawyer to get that alone time with the new girl. But no, man, like, you don't fucking do that, bro. Don't pay these fucking lawyers to ruin your life, turn upside down. Bring her a counselor. You get 1 visit a week or 2 visits a week. Would you would have put down in lawyer retainers, get rid of her to live on with a receipt, and then work this shit out. Work that shit the fuck out, and make sure, again, you get a decent counselor. If she starts to get too crazy, he'll Dr. Phil her ass back to reality a little bit, which is something the fucking lawyers won't do. The lawyer will take anything that comes out of her fucking head, write a letter to your lawyer, so he can get paid for writing that letter. Now your lawyer's got to get paid for talking to you about writing the letter to respond it. When a counselor would just sit there and be like, "Oh, shut the fuck up. That's stupid, bitch. Like, let's get back to reality." You know what I mean? So, yeah, that's what the fuck you do, bro. You don't.
So when Rick says retainer, by the way, guys, that's like a deposit. You're giving the lawyer, as soon as you walk in his office, he's gonna be like, "Look, I need a retainer."
I listen. I hope most of you guys don't. None of you. I really wish none of you guys will ever need to know what the fuck a lawyer's retainer is. That's my. Yeah. I'm blessing everybody listening to this podcast. May you never have to fork over a fucking retainer for a lawyer for any reason.
But the cliff notes is you're not getting that money back. Like, if he says it's a $25,000 retainer, he's probably gonna end up costing you at least $35,000. So you're gonna blow through that retainer plus another $10-15,000. He'll probably tell you, "I need another retainer after that $25,000." So that's you're talking $1,000 an hour. So it doesn't take that long. That 25 hours to get 25,000.
And if you're already in a nasty kind of fucked up divorce, do not try to save money going with a cheap lawyer when she's going in there with just a team, a legal team, folders and shit. They're trucking shit in their hand trucks. You know what I'm saying? They got paralegals in the seats, with notes and recording, and you're sitting there with a fucking lawyer with coffee stains in a folder, like little tiny folder, because you're trying to save some money. Yeah. Don't be stupid. Like, that's one of the dumbest fucking things you can do. If you're already in a nasty, you get the best lawyer. If you're already in just a nasty, fucked up divorce, just get the best lawyer you can get.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, your next wife, Rick, can listen to this podcast and
my next what? My next what? See, do not wish evils upon me, man. Let me tell you something. The day that I find the perfect woman, the one that I want to be with forever, the one that I know I'm never gonna look at another woman or ever get tired of. Once I find her, as soon as she says she wants to get married, at that moment she stops being the perfect one. Okay.
Oh.
As soon as she mentions marriage, as soon as she tells me that she needs the federal government to validate our union, that's not good enough for her. She's no longer the perfect one. She's not.
Well, I mean, a lot of women have told me that have been married. Their best day of their marriage was getting married. The day they got married. After that, it was all downhill.
And look, if you're in a situation out there where you're well to do decently, you make some bread, and you're in a relationship or even thinking about being something long term with a girl that is not doing as well as you are. You can give her things without being married. Like you can say, look, we're gonna buy an investment apartment. It'll be under your name. And if you ever leave, that's your going away present. Like you can give her something for backing you up and being there for you, and just put it under her name. And if we're done, then it's yours. Which, I mean, it's reasonable. I'm not saying don't, if she was there for you and you made a ton of money and she doesn't make an income, that you shouldn't, no, you take care of her, you take care of that ass. I'm saying you
It gives her the incentive,
but you can, yeah, but you don't make it so that your arm is twisted. You can buy like I said, an apartment, a little rental property that you're gonna rent out and put under her name, let her manage it. And this is your shit. You walk away with this. There's a little mortgage on it still, but you help her. You buy her an automobile under her name. Then there's hers, and if things don't work out, a few years down the line, then there's no lawyers or judges involved. She could just drive her fucking car away and go live in her little apartment. If you do that well, you can, to take that pressure off of her trying to pressure you into marriage stuff, and I'm putting my plans on pause for you. You could say, like, are you doing that? All right, fine. I'm working. You're not. Okay, we're gonna get you this car. We're gonna get you this apartment. Pay this down. It's under your name. You can walk away with it anytime. You can. I'm talking to guys out there. If you find yourself in that situation, if you don't have anything to begin with, bro. I mean, look, divorces are real cheap, but there's nothing to fight over. When ain't shit to fight over, divorces are real cheap. Child support, that's usually just mathematics. It's an equation. You can fight about that a little bit, but that comes down to a pretty clear equation. Splitting assets and splitting stuff, even future income after a divorce, that gets murky. That can be argued over, in my opinion, of what I've seen, right? A lot more than the child support and angle of it.
I think a fair split would be getting the house, the car, the money, the boat, the jewelry, and she'll get to keep the kids. That would be for me. That'd be well. The system wants to help out the poor mother whose husband like abandons her, and that's what it was designed for. But then you bring in these lawyers, and they kind of twist it to where they they want to take all your money. So that's just the way it's turned. The system rewards bad behavior, pretty much.
If you're really in a nasty, kind of fucked up, situation in courts like that, you might need to be willing to walk away and say, look, lady, we're gonna work this out amicably, or I'ma just, I'm out. You need to be able to go that far, if it's really that bad. But you have to also, your heart has to be in the right place, and you have to be reasonable. You've got kids with this person. Your kids need to be taken care of. They're going to be adults one day, and they're going to look back and know you were a fucking asshole because you didn't do the right things. So it's a lot to think about, man.
All right. Well, guys, another great episode. I have a feeling we'll touch base on this topic again down the line. So hope you guys enjoyed it. Check us out next week as well. We're going to do another episode. Stevesmi and Rick, have a good one, guys.
Hey, have a good one, Steve. Have a good one, guys.
Guys, this is the required legal disclaimer. We are only sharing our experience from years of steroid use. We are not doctors, and none of what we say should be regarded as medical advice. Always check with your doctor before taking any drugs or starting any training program.